There they go, the clown and the two sons.
You heard it here first on Juice's podcast.
The Talking Juice.
Yeah. Alrighty. We're live, part 2.
Let's do it.
Man, I had a good time yesterday, and I was like, I do not want this to stop. And it was getting around 9:30-ish,
Yeah.
and it was a good time. But I'm going to turn me down just a smidge more. Did you listen to the Mark Geist one all the way through?
Yes, I did. I listed our 10-hour road trip. I finished it eventually. So
Yeah, that was and once I realized that he had come up on the Sean Ryan show, I was interested because in the movie it's really more geared towards Jack and Roan, I think. Though I think listening to the podcast now, it seems like there were only a couple things that they could have gotten better on, on the movie. But I'm glad that most of it was right. I'm glad that, and to hear him say that there wasn't very much that really was different. Yeah.
Hollywood didn't screw it up like they usually do.
Yeah. But man, it was a great podcast.
Yes, it
was. I was very surprised in his stand in faith. He was bringing that up a lot, and it seemed like his walk in his faith seemed to grow more after that deployment and all that stuff that went down. But it was really good. And I would like, hopefully, eventually, Sean Ryan will have some more of those guys on.
Yeah.
And kind of get their
point
of view.
Yes.
Because it's going to be different between all of those guys. And,
Yeah, when he was talking, when the NX was getting hit, he was with I guess he was a CIA informant.
Yeah.
And they were off, not necessarily base, but they were out of the compound.
Yeah.
I would like to know what initially started it all before he had to head back to the annex.
Yeah.
What that looked like and stuff like that.
Yeah, because he wasn't there when it first got hit. He was off with the. I don't think she was definitely CIA.
I think she was an intelligence of some sort. Yeah,
intelligence officer. And from him it was, he hears the gunfire starting. He hears the radio calls coming from where it initially started at the annex. And all he really could do was get there as quickly as he could. And but yeah, I think it'd be interesting to hear what it was like when it first initially started, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And but
even to the point of on their travel to the annex, he told the lady, I don't necessarily need your input. I need you to keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah.
Because we're doing 37 miles an hour, because we're not going to look like a target. I wouldn't have thought of it that way. It would have instantly my brothers are in trouble.
Yeah.
It's time to bring it on.
Yeah.
And I would have gotten there. And I guess if I would, if you have the same training as he does, not saying everybody thinks the same way, but I think he did a very phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And going back to the Hollywood screws it up, when we watched Lone Survivor, and then I think it was a couple months later, I watched the Marcus Luttrell on YouTube of how because he was a big part of that production inside. And he said, I didn't want it to be so Hollywooded up. No. And what's fascinating is he picked 4 of the biggest name actors that he could think of to play him and his 3 brothers.
Yeah.
He said, because if I have so-and-so playing me, and that, if you've never heard of this story or heard anything about it, you're going to, if everybody's B-list actors, you know who's going to survive.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to see a pattern is the guys who were getting out and writing the books and doing the autobiographies and making the movies, they are a bigger part in making it so they do not get it wrong. So there's
as they ought to be, but it's not really in looking on the outside in, it's not because they don't want to become that famous person, but a lot of the time these stories, the history that's been written is normally, Hollywooded up and changed for, whatever reason.
Yeah, the viewing factor
They
of it.
just want to be a part of it just so they can get it right. Yeah. So, and I completely understand that.
And I can also see that, from Mark Geist to Marcus Luttrell is, he had brothers that paid the ultimate sacrifice in. If I was in their shoes, I'd be damned if somebody portrayed, those men as something that they, less than what they were. They weren't just a casualty. That was family. That was, I like it more when I know that the person who was there or the person who knows the situation that was happening, I think it makes it more of a more fulfilling movie.
Yeah. And it's not that everybody watches or really looks into that kind of stuff, like the books and the movies and stuff, but when they do, it's something that could potentially open someone's eyes to how that end of the world works, how that kind of stuff works in military and special operations and stuff like that. And the average Joe they're not exposed to that at all. Yeah. And some people more than others, but if you get it right and it's portrayed well and it's got the right production, stuff like that, it's gonna get to the people it needs to get to, and it's gonna show them what's really going on. Yeah. And because a lot of people, all you hear is, or all you see is what's on Instagram and what this person thinks about what happened in that situation. And Fox News, CNN, whatever, you're getting what they think.
Yeah, their opinion.
What happened, their opinion on what happened. Yeah. And it's not just with stuff going on overseas, it's even stuff going on here. You got the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. That was a freaking blow up.
Yeah.
And it was just, there was so many different opinions on what happened, so many different stories of what happened. And you have, and I will never forget this. When I was back working at Planet Fitness, and I tried to the best of my ability keep up with what was going on in the trial and stuff like that. But there was a lot of hate going towards him, but a lot of people didn't understand what had happened, and there were stories going around that weren't true and really tainting his image, as you know, him being in that trial. And the day they were going to announce his sentence, so I was working at Planet Fitness, and I had it pulled up on my phone because I wanted to hear the audio. You couldn't see it. You couldn't hear it from the TV across the room. And so I pulled it up on my phone, and they started reading off the sentences: not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, and which was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I have to sneeze.
Kazoon hike.
Yeah. Woo. I don't know if it's coming or going. So, we're watching it, and it's me and two other coworkers, a gal and a guy, and we're all watching it. And of course, I didn't go, "What do you think about this?" I was just watching it, and then as they were saying, not guilty, not guilty, I'm just like that's good. And then we had this one lady. She was a regular. I don't know if she still goes there anymore. And she's a nice lady. Always asked how we were doing. She was always super respectful, and it was always like there was always a back and forth conversation. She was a really nice person.
Mm-hmm.
And she had come around at the front desk to get a tanning bed or whatever. And she said, "Well, what are you guys watching on your phone?" I said, "The Rittenhouse trial. They had just announced that he's not guilty." And and this threw me off guard. She said, "Well, that kid can go to hell."
Wow.
I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, and then she elaborated, and she's like, especially her mom, because her mom drove him up there, and there's no reason he should have a gun in another state. And why is his mom taking him over to another state to do that kind of stuff? I'm like, where did you hear this? She's like, I saw a video on TikTok. I'm like, you're kidding me.
Yeah.
And as much as I hear that phrase, I was just like, how?
Yeah.
And I was dumbfounded. I'd seen, it's like a joke. You find out this trend or this life hack or whatever, and you're like, where did you get that from? It's like, I found it on TikTok, on a video on TikTok.
I think you'll hear more and more of that as the years go on.
And I do.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, it's just a joke. To me, it was just an ongoing joke. Yeah. And I saw it on TikTok. I'm like, and then, of course, the way she had that story was completely tainted and was not true.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing that stuff on TikTok, social media, and whatever, completely tainted how she felt towards this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you'll have that, not just with the Rittenhouse thing, it's just with everything.
Yeah.
And the people that I won't say they're lazy, but if that's what you're exposed to all the time,
mm-hmm.
you're only getting one version or freaking 50 different versions of the story, and it's on us to do our research and figure out what actually happened.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But a lot of people don't do that. They just rely on these other people that they might trust or follow on Instagram or whatever to give them their version and then just go with that version.
Yeah.
And that goes, and it's not just with news, but it even goes to church. When your pastor is preaching about something, and he says, well, in John chapter 6, verse 7, it says this. And then everybody, okay, I believe you. They don't really go and look for themselves.
Yeah. I'm that person. I bring my Bible every day to church, and he's like, turn to chapter this, and this, and I do because, like you said, everybody interprets things differently.
But and I'm not pointing at my finger at those people that don't take the time to do their research or don't take the time to flip to the chapter and the verse, because I'm that person too.
Yeah.
And I try not to be, but there are times where I am that way, and where I have been, and so I'm pointing a finger at myself too when I'm saying this.
Well, we all can point that finger at ourselves.
But I need to do a better job of taking the extra time to figure it out for myself, and really, not that my opinion matters, but that's when I can start forming my opinion when I actually know what's going on. And it's just getting more and more difficult these days to find the facts, period.
Yes.
Not someone's facts. It's the facts, period. And it's really getting harder and harder to find the straight truth of what happened.
Yeah. I started kind of doing my own research about 2019, about the end of 2019, when everything it started to get a little weird, November, December of 2019. And it was something that Fox News had said that it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And it's not just going for TikTok, it's all the social media platforms. Everything is filtered through somebody higher up. It's not like it used to be. You have a reporter that comes in with breaking news, and it goes from that reporter to, whoever's the head of the news, and then it immediately goes on to air. I feel like there's like a pool, probably Monday morning of what's it gonna be, and people start throwing out ideas or what they have thought this, and this, and even down to the reporters you're gonna get their opinion on some things.
Yeah.
Well,
but it used to be, who are your sources? Where did you get these sources? Not, what do you think on the subject?
Yeah.
And then they would air the news based on the sources and how close to the truth, like the closer you are to the truth, the better you were going to do. And the more opportunity, the more likely your article or your whatever you're bringing to the table as far as news goes is going to be aired and is going to be published.
Yeah.
But it's just changed now, and I think it's hilarious. Anchorman with Will Ferrell.
Yeah, Ron Burgundy.
Oh my gosh! And I guess I can't remember if it's the first or second one, but in the second one, they're saying their ratings are super low, and he said, "Well, why don't we just make up a story?"
Yeah.
And they come up with some of the off
the
wall shit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, their ratings start going up. And as funny as that is in the movie, that is literally what's happening today.
Yeah.
And in that movie, news in general is going down. The ratings for news, people watching news is going down steadily. And so then they were like, okay, well, let's just kind of pepper it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And keep doing that. And then they started doing that. And in the movie, the ratings started going back up. And I feel like at some point, I'm not sure when, but at some point, the ratings started going down for the news. Not everybody was watching it as often. Not everybody was buying newspapers and all this stuff. And then somehow they figured out that if we could get into this circle of people that might think the same way, they'll be more likely to stay tuned with us rather than this. And then it just got into a whole debacle, and now the news is what it is today.
Yeah.
And it's something I would rather not have to sit through and watch.
And pull out certain pieces of information that you think might be true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. And I want to be better at doing my own research and stuff, it's just when I think about it, I feel like I can't. So let's just take this recent Israel stuff with Palestine, all this stuff going on. So I would like to do more research, but I can't just pull out my phone, go on Google, and then like try to pull up sources from whoever.
It's all filtered as well.
Then it is all, it is all filtered too. And so then you're like, well, I can't even go and take my own time to try and figure this out and get straight to the point. And so I struggle with and I'm actively trying to figure out who is a reliable source, who can I go to that is bringing me the things that I need to, formulate my own opinion on this stuff. And it's hard to find those sources.
It is.
I'm always open for people to refer me to those kind of sources because I feel like I need to be doing a better job of, keeping up with what's going on around me and, kind of just trying to figure out what's going to happen ahead of time. And it's difficult. So I'm not sure who to go to, but if there's when you do research, who and where would you go?
So I'm on the same page as what Dan was talking about. The Washington Post is pretty good on certain things, but it's some of the guys that kind of run the gun shops. They have certain sources. They're buddies that they were in service with, this and that, who got into the politician side of things, and it's kind of we'll go in there and speak for 30 minutes. I kind of ask, I take the time out of my off days to go in there, and it also goes back to what you and Kinshay said, is you got to find a good group of guys to hang out with, to build you up. And those guys, we're not like have a beer on Sunday kind of guys. But I go in there and talk to them for hour and a half, 45 minutes, and you like you said before, is you got to take everything with a grain of salt. Everybody is opinionated, so I feel like it has to come from a cluster of things. Is you have to have a broad spectrum of certain things that you look at, whether it's the newspaper or certain, Fox News is not always correct, but they do swing to a certain side that we kind of agree with to a point. And then you got to take a little bit of information from everything. You got to almost do detective work with it. Is, out of 5 sources, if 5 sources have this kind of the same realm, it might be worded different, or it might have different, adjectives or verbs around it. You can kind of justify that it might be right, but again, it's a lot of opinions. But it is very hard, between like the things that are going on in the colleges right now, all the protests. I bet if you asked, 95% of them would say they got their information from TikTok. Or it came from a professor who, has different views than we do, or they do. And you this is going to sound bad, but people who have certain power above you aren't always right. And that goes even to politicians. Is just because they have politician in their name doesn't mean, or they're a politician of whatever, doesn't mean they know exactly what they're talking about. Because, like your lady before, she saw it one time on TikTok. You hear it by mouth one time, and your opinion changes immediately. You instantly believe it. And I'm not saying don't, those sources. You can listen to it all. It just depends on what you believe as, and you got to figure that out first. You got to have a basis of whether it's faith, belief, criteria, whatever it may be. You got to figure that out. What you personally. Because I think a lot of people are good, that gut feeling. I feel like some people do have that. And so you got to go with your gut sometimes.
Yeah.
Does this sound right? Well, it kind of does, but so and so wrote this and this. Do they sound the same? No. Okay. Well, do a little more research
Yeah.
because people say, we talk about opinion a lot. It is your personal belief on what actually happened. So that's the biggest thing that I had to figure out real quick is, like I said, take everything with a grain of salt and figure out your beliefs and then go from there. Whatever your basis is, go from there and always trust your gut.
Yeah. I could say that for people like you and me, but I couldn't say that for someone else, just the average Joe walking on campus. Because their gut feeling might be different than mine.
Yeah.
But, it's just, when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's just, and I've never thought about it that way, treat it like detective work, like on a case. And it just, you'll eventually get your answer, but it just might take a little longer than you want it to.
It will, yeah.
And, it's not going to be as nice as just pulling out your phone, looking it up, and it take 30 seconds to get your answer. It might take a little longer than that. And that, because I feel like being up to date and, trying to figure out what's going on around you is something that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll benefit you in how you need to kind of run the way you're living. Maybe it's preparing for something, a rise in ammo prices, a rise in gas prices, or just anything in that nature.
Mm-hmm.
It will be worthwhile, take that extra time to figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something I have to and will do better of, because it's not because I do want to do that, but it's starting to become a need.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got to do a better job.
Yeah, and we all do.
Yeah.
And I have friends and family that always, kind of joke with me of, why do you need this much of ammo or this much of this? And they're like, are you paranoid? And I say, whoa, there's a difference between paranoid and prepared.
Prepared, yeah.
I don't want to be a sitting duck in any situation. I don't want to feel helpless in any situation.
Yeah.
Whether that be, government-wise, whether that be food, water. I don't want to have to want help or need help from anybody. Because I think back to our grandfather and his grandfather. Even today, we both know him. At his age, he still doesn't care to climb on top of the roof and blow his gutters out.
Yeah.
He won't take the time because he doesn't need help. Now, there's a certain time and place when you do need help. But for simple things like that, I feel like that is the basis. One of the points of trying to be the best man you can be is being prepared, not paranoid. And when there's a big difference, when you see people that are paranoid, the toilet paper flies off the shelf.
Yeah.
So, and I think what's going on here. Your friends and everything. You got a good group of guys that are prepared.
Yeah.
And it, in the sense that, somebody who knows just about everything to do with a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who knows everything of, in the tactical sense or the firearm sense. You have buddies that know how to farm. Buddies who know how to build houses. If anything were to go wrong, that community of guys will come together. You won't have to worry about a thing. I feel like you got to figure out your niche in life, run with it.
Yeah.
Or you go to the sense of a jack of all trades but a master of none. even in the SEAL teams, everybody knows how to do medical, but you
Yeah.
still have a medic on the
Yeah.
team. Everybody knows how to do demo charges. Everybody carries some demo charge on them, but you still have a demolition man
Yeah.
on your team. And I think that is a well-rounded, and I need to get better at this as well. Going back to my basis of childhood of learning, how to shuck corn, how to can goods,
Yeah.
even to the simplest of how to skin a deer. What parts are able to be cut off that are good to go right now? What parts do you need to freeze or do something with later?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is one of the mottos that I like to live by as jack of all trades, master of none. I like to be well-rounded in just about anything. And so I try to, base myself around those guys who they might be a little bit better of a builder than they are of this.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't I learn a couple things from them? Okay. And then this gentleman knows how to farm. He knows what's going to grow during what time of year, and they can tell you off the hand. They don't have to look at a book. They don't have to look it up on the internet. It just comes off the top of their head.
Yeah.
Well, I'll spend a little time with him in the summer growing squash, beans, and corn. My wife's grandmother, she cans anything and everything. My aunt does as well. And so that's going to be my next venture of learning how to can.
Yeah.
And it sounds kind of crazy, but I feel like it's a very useful knowledge.
Yeah.
It goes back into that filing cabinet in the back of your brain of, I don't need it every single day, but the moment that I do, I can go to it, pull it out, and I'm ready to roll. So, prepared over paranoid is a big thing as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely agree. It was, I reckon, it might have been last night, but they were talking about, Thomas was talking about one of his buddies, I guess knows how to make moonshine.
Yeah, yeah.
And honestly, when you think about it, in my mind, when shit hits the fan, people are probably going to want some alcohol.
Yeah, and you can barter and trade just about anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about that, and I was like, it would probably be for the best. And as funny as that sounds, it would probably be for the best if I knew how to make moonshine.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that would be potentially, and I hope that never happens, but if it does, that is an item that would be, be considered as, an item of trade.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
And as soon as they started talking about that, I was like, that's in my mind, just kind of ran with that. But yeah, I agree. Just trying to, I feel like getting your niche, figuring out your niche is good, but also, trying to be a jack of all trades, and and it's even with simple things. And for me, I've kind of been subjected to it more, but a lot of people don't know how to perform CPR.
Yes.
And it's to a normal person, it is, I would say it's intimidating, but it is, if you took just a couple of days to a week to just look it up on YouTube, it would not take you that long. It is the amount I've trained doing CPR, and I know there's people out here that have trained CPR way more than I have, but as much as I've done it, as much as I've trained, it is something I know.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope I'm never in a situation where I have to use it. But I am very much thankful that I know, and if something like that came into fruition where I had to use it, then I've trained enough and I know it like muscle memory.
Yeah.
To where I know that kind of stuff. And it's not just trying to figure out all the other things that where it becomes habit, muscle memory, and things like that, which I could do a better job of as well.
Well, not just necessarily CPR, but the Heimlich maneuver.
Yeah,
You know,
that too.
you see a lot of videos that come through of a kid choking at school, and a high schooler jumps up and immediately steps into action.
Yeah,
There's no adult at that moment to help this poor person or poor kid. There's not a certified, but when parents train their kids for this certain situation,
Yep.
or he took a class, he probably was like, I'm never going to need to use this.
yeah.
But like you said, it's always good to know
It's
it
always
and
good to
never
know.
need it. But the moment you need it, man, you were thanking every person that taught you how to use it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I feel like that falls into the realm for me as common knowledge of, you know, there's certain things that I feel like should be brought back into school. I hear a lot of people that I work with, they're the older generation. No offense to them. And they talk about home ec. You learn how to cook. You learn how to clean. You learn how to do the simple houseworking things. And it's not for either gender. It's not for one specific gender. It is for both.
Yeah.
I would have loved it. You know, it is common knowledge. It is common basic skills. And that's that. It's gone out the door.
Yeah.
And so it does suck that you have to take the time out of your life to go and do certain things that were at one time a criteria in school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the big failures in the school system at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just even like when I talk to Zane and Ryder about school, and when I go sub for them, go sub at their schools, even within 20 years difference, 10 years difference, so much has changed already. And it is literally a night and day difference from when I was their age going into school and, you know, they're now in school. It is literally a night and day difference. Mm-hmm. And, but what about 20 years before me or 40 years? However that looks. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we've lost, I don't know how or why, but we've lost taking our kids in schools and making sure that they are set once they graduate. You know, how do you write a check?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a big one.
Signing your name.
Cursive.
And even growing up, we learned how to write a letter. Mm-hmm. Put a stamp on it and, you know, send it out on your mailbox. That's something we learned. That's something I don't even think that they're learning now.
Probably not.
And not that that's essential. Sending a letter, knowing how to write a letter is essential, but that's decent knowledge to know.
Common knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And those things are just out. They're just out the door now, and it's not talked about enough. And so now you wonder why we are as unemployed as we are, is because some of these kids don't even know how to fill out an application. Yeah. Some of these kids don't know how to network. Some of these people, and the snowball keeps rolling. Yeah. But the more we're not preparing our kids in these schools for life, doing these things that we need to do to survive, to, you know, keep trucking along, the more we're going to see these results. Yeah. More unemployment, more homeless, and the snowball will keep rolling. Yeah. And I don't know, it's going to take I feel like it's going to take something big, and it's going to take a lot of something to, you know, kind of get back on track. Yeah.
And you talk about everything in this world has evolved since, you know, 1985. Yeah. You know, there's a dramatic change, you know, whether it's technology, people, but the school system, the way it's set up, is still the exact same. We still are in the straight, narrow rows like we are in a factory. I feel like, and it kind of kills, and I feel like even then they were trying to kill creativity. Um, there's in my grade we had more artists and more musicians, and our football band was massive, and it is still today. But the arts part of it is essential as well. Even though you might not think that paintings and this, what's the main thing that we know about history and how did we keep up with history? It was art.
Yeah.
From the hieroglyphics that are in the Egyptian pyramids to, the Mona Lisa to the marble sculptures that are in Italy and France. Those were the art parts, and I'm sure when those famous artists started, people were like, "That's a useless skill. Why would you, work day in and day out on a painting that's just kind of." Thousands of years later, it is the most viewed painting in the world.
Yeah.
Again, that what we talked about the other night is history is being erased faster than it is being created.
Yeah.
And we will always repeat itself if we don't keep up with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And it's become where you are, and I'm still kind of in a school setting, but it's become where, and it sounds counterintuitive, and in some situations it's not. I don't think it's like this, but it is a control thing.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for the creativity aspect, we don't want you thinking for yourself. We want to do the thinking for you.
Yes.
And that be in your career choices, that be in your opinions, in literally anything.
Mm-hmm.
We want to do the thinking for you.
Yeah.
You just do what we tell you to do. You'll be all right. And we'll get all the other stuff. You don't even have to think about it.
And in going off of that point of they're trying to choose your, occupation for you.
Yep.
You look at most of the kid TV shows, and one that sticks out the most, and it's our youngest cousin. It's one of his favorites. It's Paw Patrol.
Yeah.
You look at every character inside that. You have a police officer, you have a fireman, you have a dump truck driver, and then you have a stewardess.
Yeah.
And so those are the common jobs that seem like they're trying to push away at the moment.
Yeah.
You don't hear many kids nowadays say, "I want to grow up and be a police officer," or "I want to be a firefighter."
Yeah.
Those, and even construction workers, those men are building America as we speak.
Yep.
They might be some of the grungiest people you ever meet, but
they're still needed. Very much.
They're the ones that are putting up Walmarts and Targets all around this country as, they're essential.
Yeah.
The essential jobs are important.
Yeah.
You're not going to go make lawyer money. But I feel like at the end of the day, if you can go home happy and know that you've done something for this world or for the country, don't chase the dollar, chase the dream.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Today it's, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's more, I want to have a famous YouTube channel, and I want to be famous on TikTok. And it's all become about, what kind of following you have, and people will nowadays relate that to your legacy.
Yeah.
And it's not what happens behind closed doors. It's what you do in front of people to, get the like, get the money, and that's just become the work towards leaving a legacy. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say that for everyone, but it just seems like that's kind of where we're at right now. And people don't follow brave warriors, brave soldiers, brave politicians. And I specifically, I watch freaking Jake Paul and Logan Paul, and they react to YouTube videos and all this stuff, and that is literally who I follow. and you're kind of just getting brainwashed into that, and that's a lot for a lot of these kids. It's the case.
Yeah.
And
but that go back to what you and Kinshay said is the nuclear family is not there anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you have one or either mom or dad out of the picture, and if it's the male figure out of the picture, we seem to gravitate to those social media stars of seeing what it means to be a man is not necessarily, that's not what a man is supposed to be, you know? One of my favorite movies, and you might get this quote, there are 3 types of men in this world. You have your wolves, and you have your sheep. And then you have your sheepdogs. You have a choice of all 3. Your life, you can determine your life off of either or. But there's only real one that matters the most, and that's my opinion.
Yeah.
You don't want to be a sheep because you don't want to get caught with your pants down. You don't want to be a wolf because you're always out to hurt others. The sheepdog has the best of both worlds. The sheepdog gets to lay with the sheep at night. But also, when the wolves start to howl, they get up and they run towards the howl. They don't run away from the howl.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that's what the good Lord put me here to be. You know, it's not all about me. It's what I can do for others to the best of my ability. And when I heard that quote, and I know it's a movie, but Clint Eastwood directed that movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you ask anybody, who in Hollywood do you think is a man? I feel like a lot of people would be like, oh, Clint Eastwood, he's right up there with him.
It's a bad mofo right there.
It is. And, you know, at 80, 90 years old and he's still putting out kids.
Yeah.
He's got something going on, you know? And when Scott Eastwood was on Rogan, you know, they had the same question or same topic they talked about is, you know, Scott's like, yeah, I have a brother that's like 5 now. Joe Rogan's like, your dad was like 87 when he was born. He's like, dude, he's still shooting them strong. That's all I gotta say. But yeah, it's, and if you are listening to this and you happen to, you know, fall into the categories that we're talking about, again, find you a good group of guys who have a good head on their shoulder, who is following Christ or following whatever religion you believe, and make sure they're a part of it.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a question or if you have a doubt, go to them. And if they're older, that's great. But again, take their opinion with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Figure out your own basis and go with it from there. And that is the biggest thing. You know, surround yourself with strong men. You will become a strong man.
Yeah.
At some point. It might take a lot of work. You might have to climb a lot of hills for it. But at the end, when someone looks you in the face and gives you a great handshake and says, you're a good man.
Yeah.
There is no better feeling. No better feeling than that right there. And I have, you know, aunts and uncles that come to me and say certain things of, you know, you took a big role early in life and, you know, I want my son to, you know, grow up to be half a man you are.
Yeah.
They don't have to be half a man I am. I will do my best the same way that you did with me is I will put them in the right direction. I will give them my opinion. When they strain off course, I might nudge them over a little bit, but it will take a lot of failure for you to figure it out. But once you figure it out, it's a great satisfaction in that. So.
Yeah.
What did you think about the John Lovell podcast? Did you get to finish his 3 episodes?
So I've only finished one because when I finished that one, first I didn't realize that there were like 3 different ones. And so when I finished that one, then I had seen the Mark Geist one. I was like, well, I'm going to listen to that one as soon as I finish this one.
Yeah.
And so then I was head deep into Mark Geist, and then I figured out that John Lovell had a couple more episodes with on the Sean Ryan show,
Mm-hmm.
and then I finished Mark Geist, and that kind of got a snowball rolling with like tactical and special operations stuff, and so then I immediately went to Rob O'Neill.
Oh, dude, that's a great one as
I
well.
freaking love that one.
Yes, that's
But
a great one.
I am for sure going to go back to the John Lovell one after I finish Rob O'Neill, and I have like 20 minutes left on Rob O'Neill. But the one I listened to, I'm not sure which one it was in the order they did it, but he was really talking about his journey in starting the Warriors.
Warrior Poet Society.
The Warrior Poet Society.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And really, they were talking about what it was like in his marriage and him being a father of some kiddos. And I want to say that it was probably the third one out of all three.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be interested in going back and starting it from the beginning and kind of piecing stuff together.
Yeah.
But I can see why you would have suggested him,
Yeah.
and I follow him on social media now. I've watched a few of his Warrior Poet Society videos.
They're so awesome.
And he's the man.
Yes.
But yeah, after I'm done with Rob O'Neill, then I'm going to go back and listen to those. But recently, 3 days ago, apparently, Sean Ryan, so his Instagram account, and he's got millions of people following him and stuff, and so that's mainly where he promotes, his YouTube channel, his podcast, and about 2-3 days ago, apparently, so his Instagram page is only visible to the people that follow him. So
they're shadow banning basically.
Pretty much.
Wow.
And he put out a video, and I'm following him so I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
But he put out a video, and he's like, I don't know what I did wrong. If you are anywhere in the realm where you may know, and you work for these people, and you have that kind of background, please talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, because I have no idea what I did wrong.
And it's crazy that
I can't fix it, and as much as I want to fix it, I can't do it until you tell me.
Yeah.
And so I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen any updates as far as that goes, because it's literally been like 2-3 days. And so, but it was weird because I had seen a few other more like right-leaning guys that were also having the same issues as far as getting shadow banned and stuff. And so maybe I was thinking, well, maybe it's like some crazy update or something, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
And I haven't done the research on it yet, but that was kind of wild to see. And so I'll be anxious to see what happens, see if that kind of shakes out.
You know what's going to happen by the end of all this? Elon Musk is going to own every social media platform, and
Man, I hope so.
And it's not because you're shadow banning my point of view or my beliefs.
Yeah.
Because I agree a lot with those gentlemen. How much of the so-called woke stuff doesn't get? How much of that woke or Antifa and stuff like that, how much of that does not get shadow banned or get taken off? Like the gentlemen who are trying to not necessarily persuade you to a certain side, but give you somewhat of a decent factual, news related to tell you, hey, what's going on overseas, gas prices are about to go up. So, taking that information, beware.
Yeah.
And that's what I have a problem with, is they're not trying to, make everybody buy guns, or they're not trying to make everybody just be gung-ho and be, gnarly every day. I'm sure that they would like for everybody to own a gun, because it is a part of your protection. It is part of your right as a human being. But that's what I have a worry with, is how much of that junk in my opinion. And that junk.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything. That's just somebody flabbergasting about something that Donald Trump did 20 years ago. How much of that does not get taken off? And that's what I have a real problem with. And in his case is you do these certain things, but you don't give him an explanation of why. It's just because he posts with American flag and you're like, oh, he's for this country. We're banning him. Mm-hmm. But, going back to John Lovell. I ran into him on YouTube, and I got into the EDC, turning the of age to conceal carry and stuff like that. He starts off his videos with what you wanted to hear, of the knife, the gun, the medical kit, this and this, and he kind of ended it with, more of a, not necessarily, but more of a religious of, you need to figure out where you're going to go.
Yeah.
You need to find something bigger than you and believe.
Yeah.
And listening to his podcast with Sean Ryan, he said something that clicked with me because I'm a very religious gentleman. The Ten Commandments I abide by. Yeah. And it says, thou shalt not kill. And he explained it's in the Greek terminology of how the Ten Commandments
I haven't listened to that one yet. He didn't say anything about that in the one I listened to.
And he says, it says, thou shalt not murder. And Mark Geis also says this as well.
Yes.
You don't have to hate somebody to kill them.
Yeah.
And that's where...
As crazy as that sounds.
It does. It does. But if you're walking down the street and some guy grabs your wife by the arm and is pulling her aggressively, I don't know him from Adam, but you're intending harm in some way. Actions will be taken. Yeah. And that really clicked with me in that sense of... I do carry a firearm every day. It goes back to your CPR. I'm glad I have it and don't need it. Yeah. And, God help me if I ever do have to use it. Because it will be a traumatic experience. In my, not just because I'm gung-ho and I'm happy to shoot somebody. No. It is there for me to not necessarily help me. It is to help others. Yeah. I was put here to do one thing. Help others. And so that really clicked with me real quick of, this gentleman knows what he's talking about. And he's far into the religion. And I envy to be that one day, And also to think that he's a deadly mofo. Yeah. Just like your father. He is the deadliest man that walks in a room. But also he is one of the most religious men that can tell you, sit down in scripture, whatever you're needing help with at any time. But also, if you need a hand in taking somebody down that is doing you harm, he's in your corner. He's ready to roll. And I feel like having a happy medium of them both, more being religious, is very important to me. Yeah. But yeah, if you haven't, Sean Ryan show is where it's at. He's got all sorts of guys and ladies on there that speak some real facts. And it's not a really biased. It is their time in the military and what they experienced. And he also says, this is not being documented anymore.
It's not.
And another one I think you should listen to is a gentleman from DJ. That I've seen clips of it on the YouTube Shorts. And he said, you'll never meet an atheist in a foxhole. And I truly believe that. Yeah. If you're really in the thick of it, when you possibly know that you're going to die at some point, that light at the end of the tunnel is coming very fast, and your life flashes before your eyes, and you realize there's something bigger out there, and I should have been on this path far longer than I am now. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I thought it was, and I'm anxious to hear word for word what John Lovell said about it, but because I know you had brought it up when you had referred him, like listening to that podcast to me, you had brought up that point about the difference between murdering and killing, and it's not a sin to kill, but it is literally in one of the 10 Commandments to murder. That is, do not murder. And I guess I kind of knew, but I'd never really thought about it in this way. But when Mark Geist put it, it was really the only difference between killing and murdering is whether you have hate in your heart towards that person. Yes. And he did say, I do not have to hate someone to kill them. And it's kind of a dilemma that in an argument that you could bring up, you're going to, kick ass and take names in the name of God and country. That's, that it does arise some kind of argument, some kind of dilemma of whether you're in the right or you're in the wrong. Yeah. And when he said that, it kind of threw me off because I'd never really thought about it in that way. And I was surprised at how informative he seemed, like a very wise guy. I would love to hear some more of his stuff too.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'm anxious to listen to the rest of John Lovell with Sean Ryan and continuing, because I feel like he's got some really good folks on there that I don't even know or have been on there yet. But I'm excited to see who else he's going to have on, and maybe all the people he has on there that I just haven't heard yet. But
well, there's a lot on there that I haven't listened to, and I do not know them. Yeah. And once I kind of get the list of the guys that I do want to listen to, then I'll start kind of trickling into, oh, I don't know who this is, so let's give them a listen. On my way to work, it's almost a 25-minute drive to work, give or take, and that's 25 minutes of your day that you can learn phenomenal information.
I can honestly say I've learned more in listening to podcasts than I have freaking going to school and as a full-time student. I've learned more in the things that I listen to podcast-wise than I do going into a classroom and, writing notes on whatever lecture. Yeah.
And I don't... And go ahead.
It's just... And you can kind of gear it towards, like, the day-to-day stuff, because I've been learning new things on, like, day-to-day things, living life, tactical, special operations, and the list goes, and I hope it keeps going, but, and just, I feel like my mind is just kind of opened up, and it's grown in knowledge, and I want that to continue to happen. And before I started listening to podcasts, it was just kind of a closed off mindset, and really just kind of also feeling like I've hit a wall knowledge-wise and I can't really intake anymore. Yeah. And but starting to listen to podcasts, especially Joe Rogan, and I don't even agree with some of the things he says and he goes with, but he's had people on there that are just really interesting, and they have really good points on the things that they may be talking about, and I've learned a lot from that. And then just recently starting Sean Ryan, he's got good stuff too. He's got good people on there too, and I would encourage people, if you want to learn about a certain subject, that the podcast is the new. I won't say new because it's been around for a little bit, but it is if you want something on a specific source, I bet you can find someone that is pretty informative on that subject. So I would encourage anybody to, kind of expand and try to research who you could go to for that kind of information, but there is definitely someone out there that would probably know.
And I like how, especially with Sean Ryan, it's not necessarily information in the knowledge of what people have. It kind of is but it is also their life story.
Yeah.
And what kind of got them to the point they are now. And there's a lot of guys that are on there that are honest of, dude, I did mess up as a kid, but
Yeah.
it took this, and this for me to turn it around.
Yeah.
It took me getting, 3 mortars sent to me on top of a roof for me to find, I was hit with a mortar 3 times. I should have died 3 times.
Yeah.
And so when Mark Geis said that, I don't think you need to go through something that crazy to find the Lord.
But that might be what it takes, though.
And it might be. It might be. And if it does, I hope you the best.
Yeah.
I really do. And people go through life at a different pace, at a different speed. And I think we're all kind of floating on a different frequency as well.
Yeah.
You hear a lot of people talk about the frequency and how that we, kind of portray the world. But yeah, you just got to figure out what works for you.
Yeah. Man, I wish we had another day to do this tomorrow.
That'd be awesome.
But close to wrapping up, I wanted to. So before we wrap up, this is something I wanted to bring up to you. But kind of a backstory. It's probably been about 4 years. You had left one of these with me, this wooden cross, like this pocket cross. It kind of sounds a little silly, but you had left it for me, and I saw it, and I didn't really know what I'd use it for, and then I was thinking, maybe I could make it into a necklace. And so then I kind of just lost it and lost count of it, and I think you had realized that I did, and I think you realized that I didn't really know what it was for. And I guess the next time you guys had come and visited, you left me another one, and with a letter explaining what it was, and I wanted you to know that this is one of the 2 things that are in my pocket at all times. Going to the gym, going shooting, to school, and if it's not in my pocket, it's on my nightstand. And the other thing is chapstick, because I can't live without that stuff.
Understand.
But I carry this with me everywhere. Every time I reach into my pocket, I think of you and your wonderful bride. And I hope because it scares the crap out of me to lose this. Not that it really means anything value-wise, but it means a great deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
And just wanted you to know that this goes where I goes always.
I love to hear it.
Not just because it's a wooden cross, it's the meaning behind it, and especially the person that gave it to me. And hopefully this will be buried with me when I die. And
it goes for me as well. And I actually sent a handful to you and the other men in my life.
Yeah.
Your brothers and your father. When I started working at the mill, I had a kind of a spiritual battle. Not get off topic, but one day I was walking across the road to work, and I found a medal, and it's still in my wallet. It's wrapped up in my wallet. It's around the rubber band. Mm. On the side of the road. And I was like, that's an odd...
It's a metal what?
It's a metal cross. It's about the same size as what you got. And it looked like it was a CNC machine. Somebody had cut it out.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm not going to leave something like that in the middle of the road. And that's just how I am. So I picked it up, and I had it in my pocket. And when I got home that night, I emptied my pockets into my bowl that I have. And it just kind of stuck with me. It kind of it always ended up in my pocket. And days that I had a bad day, I'd kind of, put my hands in my pocket and I'd feel that cross and I'd squeeze it as hard as I can, knowing, and I'd, say a little prayer in my head, behind closed doors, wherever. And a part of me kind of got a warm, fuzzy feeling of, you got this. You keep going. Well, as time went on, I have found on, as we speak right now, I've found about 15 of them in that exact spot. So, before I sent those, I had probably found a handful at the time. And it was kind of crazy because that's a highly trafficked area right
Yeah.
through there. To think that someone is tossing these bad boys out of their moving car on a whim that somebody picks it up as they're crossing the street,
Yeah.
on a whim that they might be having an awful day, but if they find this one little piece, like it's like finding a penny with the heads up,
Yeah.
it might change them for the good.
Yeah.
And that has fascinated me. And I have them. I have two above my office door. There's like 10 or 12 above the office door at the mill.
Yeah.
And it just fascinates me that
Yeah.
someone took the time to either they spent the money, they bought them with their hard-earned money, or they took the time of cutting these out in a CNC machine or whatever to just kind of drive by at 60 miles an hour and just flop them out the window, hoping, and knowing that there's possibly, if you can save just at least one, you've done phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think about the times that, how many times did I step over one? How many have people picked up as they're walking across the street? This person could be doing this for the last 15 years. And, there's hundreds of people out there that have picked one up and, they're might be changed for the better.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuck with me of, I'm not trying to preach to you, but know that somebody's praying for you today. Yeah. And so that stuck with me very, very heavily. So I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm glad it sticks with you, because that was my whole meaning behind it.
Yeah.
Is it's not meant to tell you you're right or wrong. It's meant to just to show you where the line is, and hopefully you can walk it.
Yeah.
And that's I'm glad it's, and I've seen it. Every time you come stay with us, I see that bad boy in your pocket.
Yep.
with your Burt's Bees. So, good. You ain't got chat flips and you're walking with Christ. So there you go. It's all you need in life.
Hey, Burt's Bees, I could for sure use a sponsor. If you wanted to sponsor me, that'd be nice.
Man, that'd be awesome.
But before we wrap up, so I wanted to grab you something, and it's kind of this, kind of the same gift that you gave me with this little wooden cross that I've had since I was a kid, and I wanted to give you it and just kind of return the favor to you. But it is over here, and I will grab it real quick.
All right.
So I used to carry these in my pocket. Dad has an enormous collection of these
Challenge coin.
kind of token kind of thing. These coins, these military coins from his deployments and, people he's met. And when I was younger, so he has the sword box, his Marine sword box with his coins and his sword. And we were kind of just looking through him one day, and he's polishing his coins, and we got across one, and this one, and he ended up having like 2 or 3 of these, and I ended up with 2 of them. And he was just polishing them. I was like, Dad, can I have this one? And he said, yeah. And then somehow he had come up with some more, and I ended up with another one. So I have another one for me over there. But this is something I used to carry around when I was a kid, just because I thought my dad was a badass, and he totally is. And he was a person that was special to me. And so I wanted to give this one to you. And you can do with it whatever you want, but I just kind of wanted to return the favor. And something that when you look at this or when you grab it, just know that, I'm praying for you, and you mean a lot to me, and your opinions and your prayers are very appreciated. And this is kind of something I wanted to do, just kind of return the favor, because I knew that's what your intention when you gave me that, and I wanted to return the favor to you. So I was gonna give you that, and but yeah, kind of just wanted to wrap up with that. And I hate you guys have to go tomorrow. I wish y'all could stay forever, but I know you got stuff to do, and we got stuff to do too. But I imagine I will be headed to Georgia here in 4 or 5 months, maybe less. Definitely want to come up there and see you guys and spend some more time with you.
That's awesome.
But I think we can wrap it up on that.
Yeah.
Episode 4, episode 5, part 2. And we'll wrap it up on that.
Well, one more thing.
Okay.
I just have to say thank you for allowing me to be on here, and it means a lot to know that you respect me the way that you do, and it goes both ways between us. It does mean a lot that I have someone as close as you. And I'm close to your brothers. I'm close to my brothers, but we have a special bond that will never be broken. And I just thank you very much, and I love you.
Love you too.
And wherever this takes you, I'm in your corner. So
I appreciate it. I think we can wrap it up on that.
That sounds good.
Good stuff. Oh, good stuff.
That's a badass corn right there.